7th Provincetown Book Festival. Tonight, yay! My name's Amy, I'm the library director. I wanted to thank our sponsors, the Friends of the Provincetown Library, the Massachusetts Cultural Council, and the Tourism Department of Provincetown, as well as our advisory committee who came up with the schedule, and Leslie Starr, who's our volunteer coordinator, and all the volunteers who I will not list because there's 70 of them. So let's give them a round of applause for that. And I most especially want to thank Nan Sonater. She's the director of the book festival. I hope she's hearing this. I don't see her. She is the force behind the book festival. There would be no book festival without Nan, and it's been such a pleasure to watch it grow over these past few years. There she is. So I was just telling everyone, Nan, that we owe it all to you. And no, but seriously, thank you, Nan, for providing this program and what it gives to the community of readers and community of writers, and we're grateful, and we're really looking forward to the next 2 days. There's brochures all over with all the upcoming events, so make sure you look at those because we have 2 days of fun after tonight. So first I'd like to introduce Mary Jo Avalar. She's our town moderator. She's going to tell us about Frank a little bit and share a proclamation that the select board passed the other day. So, Mary Jo.
Thank you, Amy. Frank and I graduated from high school together, Provincetown High School class of 1964. And Frank was always kind of quiet, but still waters run deep, as we've all discovered. As we've gone along when we followed Frank in his illustrious career. So I'm very, very proud to be up here tonight. And as I understand it, the Select Board has declared this Frank Gaspar Day. And there's supposed to be a proclamation here. Here it is. And so anyway, it says, whereas the town of Provincetown takes pride in the rich cultural history of the town, and whereas the Provincetown Public Library annually honors an individual associated with the Outer Cape who makes a substantial contribution to the written word with the Rose Dorothea Award. Whereas the library trustees are presenting this year's Rose Dorothea Award to Frank X. Gaspar, and whereas Frank X. Gaspar was born and raised in Provincetown, Massachusetts, right up there in the neighborhood of town we call Kelly's Corner, where Provincetown, it takes the bend, and there used to be a fire station. He lived in that house right at the corner. Whereas Frank X. Gaspar is the author of 5 collections of poetry and 2 novels, and whereas both these acclaimed works, Leaving Pico and Stealing Fatima, are largely set in Provincetown, offering a narrative of the Portuguese experience in Provincetown, and now therefore, in recognition and celebration of the many contributions made to Provincetown and individuals across Cape Cod, the Select Board of the Town of Provincetown in the County of Barnstable of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts does hereby proclaim Friday, September 29th, 2023 is Frank X. Gaspar Day in the Town of Provincetown. It is signed by Chairman, Eric Borg, John Golden, Vice Chair, Austin Miller, and Leslie Sandborn, and it's been attested to by Alex Morse, our town manager. So I'm very, very proud to call Frank my friend and to present him with this proclamation.
Thank you so much. I'd like to bring up Joan Prue. She's a member of the Library Board of Trustees, and she'll be introducing Frank tonight. Joan?
Hello, everyone. The Rose Dorothea Award is presented every year now by the Provincetown Board of Trustees of the library. And we we have specified that it's a person with a strong connection to the Outer Cape who has made a significant contribution to the written word. This year, we're incredibly pleased to present the award to Frank Gaspar. Frank was born and raised here in Provincetown, and his family was originally from the Azores. Frank's ancestors were traditionally whalers and Grand Banks fishermen, sailing out of the islands and then out of Provincetown. In 1966, Frank joined the Navy and served for 3.5 years, including 2 tours on the aircraft carrier USS Hornet during the Vietnam War and the recovery of the Apollo 11 space module. Frank earned a Master of Arts and MFA from University of California, Irvine, and a number of his books treat Portuguese-American themes or settings, particularly the Portuguese community in Provincetown. Frank is the author of 5 collections of poetry and 2 novels. Among his many awards are multiple inclusions in Best American Poetry, 4 Pushcart Prizes, a National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship in Literature, and a California Arts Council Fellowship in Poetry. Frank's debut novel, Leaving Pico, was a Barnes & Noble Discovery Prize winner, a recipient of the California Book Award for First Fiction, and a New York Times notable book. His second novel, Stealing Fatima, was a Mass Book of the Year in Fiction, Massachusetts Foundation for the book. Frank's latest book, a fusion of several genres, is named The Poems of Renata Ferreira. I want to tell you that Frank's 2 novels, which I just loved, Leaving Pico and Stealing Fatima, are very moving descriptions of young boys who grew up very poor here in Provincetown. And while you read the novels, you're probably going to be very excited to learn that what Provincetown was like in the 50s, and it includes the famous fire in the Catholic Church, which burned the whole church down. And most important, I think, in addition to being a wonderful novelist, Frank is recognized as a brilliant poet. One line from one of Frank's poems moved me. "The stars are waiting for me." Now, don't we all hope that maybe the stars are waiting for all of us? It's just a lovely line. Now, I'm going to present this award, which...
Just behind you.
Oh, okay. And I want to just tell you a little bit about it. It was custom made by Pierpont Glass, which is in Bourne. And in this award are colors of the Portuguese flag: yellow, green, and red. On behalf of the Board of the Library Trustees, I'm honored to present this to you, Frank Gaspar.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joan. I'd like to welcome Frank X. Gaspar up to the podium to read for us. That's why we're all here tonight, so thanks. Frank.
Well, I can't tell you, I can't describe how I feel right now, but it's kind of overwhelming. So I'm going to start with, I'm just going to start, and we'll see where we get. I have about 43 poems that, no, I don't. Yeah, get used to it. But this is, I have some of my friends are here from high school, and you know, we have these moments and people and things that happen in the arc of our life and I'm convinced that they help to steer us. But this is a poem I found. I was going through my archives, my junk, and I found this poem, and I must have written this poem 30 years ago. It's not the best poem I ever wrote, but it's about a woman, named Phoebe Rogers. And some of you may know the name. She taught English at Provincetown High School, which is now defunct. But she was a real force to be reckoned with. And, well, you'll see how it works, I guess. So this is praise for Phoebe Rogers, and the name of the poem is Jubilee. For her room was warm in the coldest barking days of winter. For no one yelled and screamed in this cleanliness, and the chairs and desks were in severe and demanding rows. For no one spoke unless called upon. This is hard for me to read, I'm sorry. For on the blackboard flowed the wisdom of particles, nouns in their diverse flavors and their muscular predicates. For she dressed and groomed in another century without irony or parody. For she held her pointer like a switch and never a cliche. For she set us to the quality of mercy, word for word, and to Shylock's speech, and nothing has felt like that since, no new thing nor wonderment. For she had us recite the celebrant poem about the madman and his cat, and gravity shifted once and for all, which I felt in tremors through my own weakened legs. For on her counter for sale sat the rows of books, cheap, paper-spined, all the praises and lamentations of poetry. For there was Whitman and Frost and Dickinson and Shelley and Blake and Donne and Palgraves, and I spent my paper route quarters and nickels not on lunch, which would have been wise, but on these brave pleasures, their colors and pages whose very ink smells were a dire intoxicant. For I can touch and smell them still. For she would have us write and straighten our sentences with no mercy on the dullard, that's for sure. For she would have us write and straighten our sentences with no mercy on the dullard. For she drilled us to the precise cadences of the pond in winter, from which there is no modest recovery. For if you were lucky, you could come back in the gray late afternoon and sharpen her pencils in the steam heat. And she would never smile or show the least favor. For only to linger among the books, their order, their peace, their solace, you wished you could sharpen pencils never-ending. For I am still sharpening pencils and straightening sentences. For there is no other life in life for which I have given thanks. For in the end, the beginning of all jubilation is praise. I was hoping her son would be able to make it, but I couldn't reach him by any electronic means. So. Here we go. I have many pairs of glasses, and I might be seen shifting them around. I think this might work. Okay. What do we got here? Come back to that. Work. To lift the flesh from the fine sheer bone, so that the fish's bodies fell back into an image of fish, head and fin joined in a wicked mockery of wholeness. That was the one genius of his hands that never left with age or gout or whiskey. In one measure of a man he passed to me, leaving me his black knife which he'd honed to a rib on oil and stone, and showing me the lines of the body. One follows, drawing the blade like a feather over skin, lifting the pearl of binding scales and opening the shining harvest of fish, meat for one hunger, and for another, in the sweat of his face, his right to travel in that vanishing, uncomplicated world of men, where he bid me to follow with grace and anger, showed me the proper silence of labor, how to hold my mouth shut with the exact insurgent tuck of lip, how he wanted me to glare back as he did into the hard light of abundance and tear the bread from any long task we had before us. That's from my grandfather, John J. Gaspar, who was something of a character in town for many years, and is still beloved. Okay. As if there were no bitterness in their lives, as if no dark ever slid outward from the sills of those kiltered windows, the house would suddenly fill with women, and the rooms would float in heady yeasts, while my mother, powdered to the wrists in flour, would pound the dough in the great bowl, yellow, sugared, egg-heavy, warm in the gossip and coal smoke of a winter morning. And the gravid bowl set by the chimney filled each corner with lingering spirits, the sweet bread swelling, buttock, breast, belly, plump tub of the world where the women, even then, were softly disappearing into their envies and wishes, and where the men also slipped toward shadows as they waited for the hot slabs tendered from the oven, greased with butter, to dredge in milk coffee after a freezing day at the wharves. And the oldest among them all, maple-skinned, gaunt under her rough apron, brushing the heel of her hand in the sign of the cross over the still rising loaves, a devotion she would never again make over loaves like these, never again in exactly this way, the earth in the rife bounty it heaps on the favored, letting go of all of this forever. If such sweet bread were ever blessed or holy, let them take it now quickly and eat. One summer night, once in summer light, he turned to me and said, "When you die, you die. That's it. There's not anything else." This parses like a dream, but it is not. He worked on a neighbor's wall, a pail of whitewash by his shoes. Shallow weeds bowed and yawned, and I had no business listening to this blasphemous talk coming from an old country Catholic. Another time he came up the walk with an old black Underwood portable that the failed restaurant on the corner had used for typing its sandwich menus, a gift for me, $5. It smelled like oil and steel and clattered back at the world when we poked it. This would be another act of love that made me. Now what do I say about this grave in the clumped thicket of lilac and alder on the church's scruffy hillside, where the wind sloughs to tatters, to ribbons against the quick branches and the simple stone? The typewriter comes back. I still have it. And it's a long story, but if you ever get a hold of the poems of Renata Ferreira, which is actually a third novel, but it is a melange of genre. And that typewriter figures largely in Renata's being, and I can say more about her at some other time. But let me see. What do we want to do? We'd lie under the wasting stones at night in the old cemetery and toke the rum and cheap wine that we always wheedled from some summer person into buying for us, because we were townies and underage. Down along the honky-tonk waterfront, we knew the town swelled in its nightly raptures, the meat rack hustle, the tourist bars, the easy tricks, night laughs that always carried to our ears from some other world, so rich and lush we could only desire it. We improvised on the dust of our ancient dead, whose stones had sugared away their names. One set of graves, like a circle of toadstools, a young wife, we decided, 6 of her children. Elsewhere lean markers on empty loam, shadows of words under lichen, in memoriam, lost at sea. We waited, drunk, for their ghosts to claim us, dared and mocked them, and they never came. They lay in the deeps of oblivion and grinned at nothing until we stumbled down the soft hill, stretching to the town's late music, some reek of theirs trailing behind us as we roamed among the lovely bodies of the living. Oh, well, this is great because this is going to be the only audience probably I encountered in the last year or more that I won't have to explain what a quahog is. It's yeah. It was for the wind as much as anything. It was for the tidal flats, for the miles of bar and the freezing runs between them, blued and darkened in the wuthering gusts. For the bucket, for the long-tined rake, for your skin burning and the bone beneath it, all its ache. For the bent back, for the huddle toward warmth beneath your incapable layers, how you beat yourself with your arms. The breath you blew, the narrow steam that spun away. Then you felt them as you dragged. Then it was surgery and forced together, like stones, opal or pearl or plain rock, ugly except they are beautiful. The bucket's wire cutting with their weight, the sky blazing the orange fire of God, the sky's black streaks with night rising, winter sudden. Back shoreward, the tide creeping like a wolf, the little stove, its own orange fire of God, the old pot, the steam, the air and savor, the close room, the precious butter, the blue fingers throbbing, the body in all its customs of weariness, the supper, succulent of the cold sea come up, and hunger, its own happiness, its own domain, immeasurable. It was for the hunger. I'll just read some random. Here's a, I don't know, somebody somewhere at some point said, a good way to start a poem is to think about one of your past lives. And and have you noticed that anybody that has past lives, they're never like a galley slave, but they're always like a warrior or a princess or something. So I thought, well, how far back can I go? I'll try this, and so I went back as far as I could, and it turned out I was a fish. And it wasn't bad. Let me see. Yeah, I don't know. When I was a fish, in that time when no one walked the long tangled banks of the pond in those deep woods unscarred by roads, oh, you should have seen me, my long fish body one muscle, and my will narrowed to the fine essentials. You would have cried out from my beauty when I leapt into the sun and air, and you saw the rainbows and lightning on my stippled back. And I would have made you jump. Your breath would have caught above your heart, and you would have loved me in that certain way we love things beyond any need for them, but desiring them senselessly. Oh, the buzz of the dragonflies, and then my killing heart in the shade of the lilies, and the black water with all its treasures, and my wicked teeth, and how the green leaves on the trees shuddered when I rose and struck. That was when I was a fish. I would never lie to you about that. I don't know why I would tell you this now. I don't know why you would ever listen to anything in a poem, except it might stop you for a moment. It might make you lift your head and look around in just that lonely hour of the day or the night when the world isn't quite enough. Oh yes, I was a power. I raised that hidden world with splendor and terror. And if only you could have seen me, your breast would have been filled with rapture, I'm sure of it. Along those wild shores, along that gloss of water, among the sweet greens of summer, where were you? You know, you guys get out to the ponds much? Yeah, their beauty is transcendent. When he left, when he was finally gone, he thought he was nothing on this earth, although there was no he and no thought, and he believed he would join the vast armies of the dead that he had heard about. But nothing flew up through his breast and nothing raised up from him. Then the woman held him in a wooden box, and he heard her say how it was heavy, so heavy, and that it was mostly crushed bone among the black ashes. Her hands were strong. They were always busy, and he had always admired them, but they were both beyond that now. She shook him gently from the box at some point. It was what was known as morning. She always liked to hear the coffee coming down, the burbling noise it made in the white machine on her kitchen counter. She shook him into a paper sack and put a smooth stone from the beach into it. Their minds had been alike in some ways. There was a good weight to the stone. He knew it. They had picked it out together. It was the size of her heart. Then she carried him. She walked the path out through the woods and to the pond. She wore what they once called sneakers and denim pants and a wool sweater. When they reached the shore, she stepped into the water, which was like the sky at night, black and shining, and she walked out until the water was near to her shoulders, and her breath blew and shuddered. Then she let him go. It was everything they had hoped for in the times they had hoped. He went down. He settled. He might have lain immured in the sack for weeks. It was a surprise. He loved the cold water, and he loved it more as it ate of the sack until it no longer was, and he no longer was. And without a way to tell it clearly, he slowly became the pond, spreading with the slowest, quietest eddies, so slow. He could not say where he had been or what, but when the ice came, he was the ice, and at the same time he saw up through its gray ceiling, and he saw more gray. Snow came, then dusty white, like clouds, and then it thickened, and then he was everywhere under a black quilt, moving as nothing moved. When the summer sun came, he was in the fish, and the fish were in him. When the lilies rose, he rose in their veins, and they bloomed white and pure. He was in their throats, and they made a broken kind of singing. When the stars drifted over the frogs roared, and there was a kind of laughter. This is all a way of speaking, when there was truly no way of speaking. He didn't know where the others were, but it would be wrong to think that anything was the same, that there were desires or feelings, or that there were even others. After a while, everything and nothing were just sounds the living made. He barely knew them. If there were speech, he would say just one thing. Your realm above the glassed eye of this silent water is just a dream. This other place, this forever, this forgetting, this always was the only world. That seems like a happy poem to me. Wouldn't you want to be in the pond? When you get there? Let me see. Oh, we'll change up a little bit. This is called Nausicaa. You all remember Nausicaa? We do, that had Phoebe Rogers for English. She was the naked, young, beautiful girl that met Odysseus. No, actually Odysseus was naked. He was always, have you noticed that Odysseus was always falling off of boats without his pants on? So I mean, you go back to the Odyssey and you know, it's like, what's wrong with this guy? But anyway, so that's what it is. That's who she was. But it really isn't. I can only see your room with my eyes closed now. That's how little I understand anything at all. And you, sitting up as I entered, and in one motion you throwing off your nightgown, cornflowers and flannel, and the moment catching your hair's wildness in an insolent shrug. And then I was Odysseus, naked before Nausicaa. But no, you were naked, and I was merely doomed, and I moved as into the twilight of a cave, like a man loving his own ruin, happy for his wounds, and happy for the wounds to come. Maybe a spark jumped, but there was no name for the god of fragments. There was just a fire I believed in. And there is still a fire that I believe in. Like the nymph incandescent in the glade from whom the man should have run in terror instead of begging her to renounce her godliness in the name of carnal love. Still, there were old men once in their robes and togas who were wise and famously schooled by a woman, and they told us that everything here is a shadow of something else, like a song plucked on strings that implies two bodies dancing in an ecstasy beyond all earthly knowing. Where is your bed now, your prodigal body that whole polities might worship? In what world? That's what I'm asking, love. What world? And you know, the other woman is Diotima, right? Remember? Yeah, we know. Cool. And so somehow she gets in the, you know, the Plato and all that gang. They would have these drinking parties, and it's like all guys. But Diotima was so cool that she kind of got in, and she kind of took them to school. It's pretty cool. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good story. She was different from Nausicaa. She was more cerebral. That's how she got in, probably. I already read that. Let me see. Oh. It's sad not to be understood, but it's better than being comprehended by crowds of people at the beach in summer. In summer at the beach, there's always a fish. At night, there are stars and sex and everything else primordial. I'm writing this to you from far away. Distance always fascinated you. You liked the names Verlaine and Baudelaire better than you liked their poetry. I never judged things like that. My God, how I loved you. How the stars revealed their true natures when we rocked in each other's arms. Their work was done. We pleased them. And they didn't care at all about our fates. Stars aren't like that. They don't even believe in the sky. It's not how they think. They do not, of course, think. It's so odd, the differences between them and us. And don't you feel it? Even when somebody is being wrong, someone else is getting it exactly right. The stars are way beyond all that, and the lovers make it all worthwhile. Hazy, wandering moon, sand in your hair, your beautiful profiled face, your pleasure incandescent, all mine subordinate. But tonight I don't calm the stars. I don't name the beach. The fish is long and green like a gemstone, and she has slipped elsewhere among the tattered ribbons of our thinking. Because we loved once, according to all the signs and omens and powers, I think of you. You live by a lake. When I close my eyes to see you, your hair is long and silver like the moon. Sometimes when I see you like that, it is snowing and there's a brindled horse and an old car and a house with high windows. You're happy. There's no chance I'm getting this exactly right. When we were lucky, I called it a blessing. And you never judged things like that. There's a point when there is nothing left but waiting, but I don't know what I'm waiting for. I'm happy. Is that you in that house? by the windows. When I see you like that, I think that maybe you're waiting too. The title of that is Verlaine Baudelaire. I don't always like to say the titles of the poems, you know what I mean? Okay, we'll do one more of those and then we'll bring it home. What's left of Vermeer for me? A book. Astonishing. The remainder table in one of those horrid bookstores that have taken over the world with people in them that never read. So when you ask for crime and punishment, they search the machines for sociology. But Vermeer that one morning, $5.95. Must I not be thankful for such grace? Strong, good coffee and light coming in from the parking lot of shining cars and shimmering on the plate glass window and lighting the color plates. Woman, 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 woman. And I didn't think at all of Thomas Transformer's perfect poem, the one that should seal away all others from Vermeer. So in my own ignorance prevailed. Jubilant and safe for a little while, I thought I saw de Kooning unwavering in his coming after, undaunted, woman, woman, woman. And I felt that small lament, too, that there was no linseed smelling and high ceiling chamber for me, full of white light and bespattered floors and walls, thick unguent middens of cast-off paint, jars and cans and sable brushes, objects and tools I cannot define or name but wish for. Sorry that I couldn't join this tribe of strangers for a moment, for whom the world is light, fleshed in light, composed of it to its very atoms, in the absence of it, draping some shape or figure in reverent darkness so that something comes through and sits on your heart that you cannot say for a lifetime what it is like the necklace of small stones a man cobbles for his lover, scooped from the edge of the sea when the tide was running white-capped and blue-black, and that she wears in history only of how they gleamed once in messed up. Wave, gleamed once in wave and sand, and she doesn't even notice how they have blanched, or having seen them once radiant and transfigured, whatever they have turned to or become, she doesn't care. Okay. So, I think we're going to do, excuse me. I was writing a poem for many, probably months, I guess, I don't know. Whoops. And it was about a mechanical pencil with number 2 lead in it, which I found. I still have them. They're kind of fetishes, but I just, I like the way it felt and how it moved across the paper and so forth. And so I wrote reams. I just wrote. And I would sit on the back porch and write, and I just couldn't get it right, And but it was during the time when the crepe myrtles were blossoming in the backyard, and we don't have any lilacs where I live, but the crepe myrtles are just huge blossoms, and they bend the tree over. It was, gorgeous. And I'm looking at those, and I'm thinking, well, what can I do with that? Well, my mother had died about a year earlier, and her name is Myrtle. And so I finally got what Psyche was leading me to write this poem, and it's called Myrtle, and it's for my mother, who is up on the hill with my grandfather and others. When she began the long fade, when she lay forgetting everything, when she lightened in the right days and her only words became small rumors in her throat, and their meanings crept and hid from her as the prophets always said they would. Then I took up the books, and I found The Fire in the Lake and that which lets now the dark and the light appear. I found he hides his weapons in the thicket and the seven thunders. I found the pillars of fire and the mighty angel with a rainbow on his head. That's when she became smaller and smaller and fumbled my name among the lush wastes and nothing. It was during that fall when whole kingdoms were also dying. It was when, in the cradle of my yard, the green dragonflies came to shine, and then the monarchs and the swallowtails and mourning doves and the mockingbirds and the ravening bees, and the crepe myrtles too had begun their changes. Heavy and abundant the blossoms, blown and brazen, pink and purple, drooping in bushels, weary amid their own crowns, the slender limbs bent to the earth by their burdens. The bees made a trembling in the air, and those transfigured trees. Who could they have ever meant to me then? What could they ever have meant to me there after the thunder and the fire and the light and the dark and the vanished kingdoms of the earth? And the glutting bees crowded the death-sweet flowers and wallowed in their frowsy sugars and reeled and swooned in the death-sweetness. So sometimes it takes a long time to find out what you really wanted to say while you were laboring to say something that probably wasn't worth saying. It's like that, I guess. Okay, so where are we? Oh. I was sitting up in the graves in Provincetown, my back against the old Gaspar stone, and I could feel my grandfather angry and restless and hating to be dead. He wanted to laugh and walk among the wharves and streets and be greeted and hailed and loved and drink cheap wine again. I should have brought that other stone with me, the black lava rock from Pico, Azores, that I plucked from the beach outside of what is maybe the little village that all the old ones harbored from. How I could push it into the sandy earth and cover it over, and something at last would be done. One day I will bear it here. Another day I will fall here like blown dust. I took a bottle of green wine and opened it and poured it out and let some of it sink into the ground. Then I drank some. Then I poured some more in the graves, like that, back and forth, and I talked out loud to the dead, some going back so far. I knew almost nothing about them, but only had the graveyard on the weathered granite to steer by. Sometimes to get to the new Eden, you have to step on the head of the dragon. That much is written somewhere. All these gardens and forests of death, so beautiful in the light, light everywhere and the old stones gleaming over the burying fields, white and gray. Little tufts of spiky grass nestled here and there. What is the moral order of stone that it has so much to do with how love never knows where its limits are, or when to stop in this world, with all its perennial Gomorrahs and Jerusalems wedged flagless in the heart, your heart and mine? Do you dream? Do you hear the sea? Are you broken? Are you whole and upright? The women here love God every day in their long garments and lean over the white fences eternally and whisper to one another. The men are all hoarse and sinewy and hard at work. Somewhere in the Atlantic of mysteries, it's snowing and they're in a boat, long and narrow, heaving and shouting at the oars. The distance closes. They're making way. When I hear them, but I don't know all the words. The snow aslant, the ocean fierce and peaked and black, yet there are no impediments to the perpetual coming. By one oarlog, an empty space on the thwart, laid along the freeboard, a single clear oar. One day I will bruise my head, another day I will bruise my heel. Okay, I'm going to just close with this, and then if you want, maybe we can talk a little bit or whatever you want to do. The cold iron wind in the Hudson River from whence it blew, 13 degrees on all the instruments and water in my eyes, but there was a fire someplace. It made my ears burn and sting and me buffoonish in my old dirty down parka, that I used to sleep in up in the mountains with my little tent in the snow. I'd go in on skis by myself and write haiku in the candlelight because I believed such things would improve my inner being. But now I was leaning sideways, walking up to 54th Street to finally have a look at the de Koonings. I don't know what I expected. I don't know what I was looking for exactly, except that I'd seen too many prints, too many cramped photos, and I wanted the full brunt of it, that late rapturous style, that sexual confrontation that I'd read so much about, the crazy man in the 4th Avenue loft before lofts were ever cool, drinking and working and working and working, wrapping paintings in wet newspaper so he could rub things out the next day and start over and over and over. Yes, it was that. I will admit it. I wanted to stand in the presence of the real thing and feel it. It's never the aboutness of anything, but it's the wailing underneath it. And there was a pain behind my heart and some kind of weird music inside my ears, so that riding up in the escalators there came a slow panic at the swirl of a woman's long skirt or a man's head turned at just the right moment. No explaining the sources of this, not the smells of body heat and heavy coats, though I know that every time you run towards something you love, you run away from it too. You get blinded by the colors or you miss something important and the moment collapses and takes whole worlds with it forever into some kind of blackness. It was crowded, that room. But almost everybody was just passing through, and I found I could walk right up to those canvases, and I believe I could have laid hands on them before anyone jumped me. But of course, I just leaned and stared. I don't know how long. It didn't matter. What I needed was to take them with me and slant them against a wall someplace safe and curl up next to them at night instead of trying to sleep. It would be the only way. Back outside, I staggered up against the wind and it blew my tears back. And I finally ducked into a little place selling hot soup in paper bowls, and everyone was taking something off or putting something on. And they were all talking and moving like they knew absolutely how to spend every hour of their lives, and not in darkness either, or in despair or regret. And when I could see that the winter dusk was running to silver against the high roofs and towers, I stepped out again into the street, the shiny cabs cruising, and the men and women bundled in long coats and bright scarves, and the hundreds of windows in the city's dark pavilions, each showing its square of yellow light. And I walked back into that other kingdom. That's it. I think
Thank you so much. How lucky are we that you got to come here this year? We're so grateful. Does anybody have any questions for Frank? I know a lot of people know him from the past. If not, we can get down to book signing and refreshments on the other side of the boat. And I also wanted to mention that tonight there's a book festival adjacent event that starts at 10 p.m. at 378 Commercial Street called Big Parlor. It's poetry and prose, and you can expect to maybe see some cameo appearances of some of our book festival writers. So that's 378 Commercial at 10 p.m. And questions?
I have a question,
Frank?
which is,
Yeah, come on up.
I'm actually embarrassed that I don't know, but in your poem Myrtle, when you took up the books, could you say something about those references, Frank?
A lot of those were just out of the good old Bible. Almost all of them, actually. And maybe some arcana stuff, but yeah, nothing too esoteric.
So you can't say where, was it like
Well, let me see.
Revelations? Or I don't know.
No, nothing from Revelations. I don't think. I don't recall. But there's a lot of really like stuff in the Bible that we don't ever hear about because it's so strange, And so I was drawn to them. And again, there might have been a couple of other, maybe. Oh, the I Ching for sure. I just it was a long time. That's a good question. Anybody else want anything? You guys want to go eat? Thank you for coming. It's been a pleasure.